Dropfleet Commander, the Dreadhold. I picked this up, one, because I like narrative gameplay, and two, because I've heard this can be an interesting alternative to the two-player starter. It is 2679. Across the war-torn colonies of mankind, organized crime is on the rise. No gang is more feared than the Eightfold Syndicate. Brutal and relentless. Now they want their crime lord back. Atrax, one of the most dangerous criminals in known space, is locked inside the Dreadhold, a massive fortress built to hold the worst of the worst. This won't be a covert op. It's a full-scale prison break in orbit. The Penal Security Corps stands in their way. Cold, disciplined, and armed with cutting-edge UCMF warships, they are led by Fleet Warden Darius Holt. The PSC doesn't negotiate, but the Eightfold Syndicate's fleet under Void Master Zahir Malenko fights dirty, with salvaged ships and crews that have nothing to lose. In the vacuum of space, every ship counts and every decision hits hard. No reinforcements, no retreat, just brutal ship-to-ship combat until one side breaks. This is the siege of the Dreadhold. The box contains a Dreadhold ship, 6 UCM ships, 12 resistance ships, a rulebook, 10 dice, a space station sheet, 2 debris sheets, 2 token sheets, 3 quick play cards, and bases. Alright, so this is a decent number of ships, and it has dice and the space stations and everything like that. So I understand where this can be an interesting starter if you like resistance and the UCM. And it is also the only place that you can find the Dreadhold mini. Okay. There we go. The contents. Let me just move these to the side. Okay. Alright, so you get 2 of the sheets with debris fields and drop sites. So if you want to play this with the full rules with drop sites, this does allow you to have those options. In addition, there are all the tokens for fire and damage and the different types of drop site locations. The space station options. If you have actual space stations, 3D, you can always put those bases down on these so that you always have the center, but also be able to move through them. But this is perfectly fine for starting a game. Everything's measured from the center stem anyway, so there are asset tokens. 4 different colors allows you to have everyone playing without worry about who's which color, which is nice. There are 10 dice, always nice to get more dice. There are quite a few bases in here. That's good. The quick play reference sheets have a specific build for it because the game plays with these ships. So building the Lux Mortua is probably a good idea if I want to play the actual Dreadhold missions. Although playing a ship with a vent cannon turret, an N8 artillery cannon bank, and bulk landers and fire ships with reinforced armor may not be the way that I would normally build a cruiser, but just because I build it differently doesn't mean I can't run it like this. So we'll see. Maybe. Two Senecas, Belaires, Aldrin, and Newton. That makes sense. A Berlin, an Edmonton, two Detroits, and two Toulons. Okay, that can be good. And then the Dreadhold. Cool. Then we have two strike carriers and two attack frigates. Interesting designs. So that's pretty cool. All right. Oh, let's see. We also have the rule book for playing the Dreadhold. It has the information behind the Dreadhold, the core rules, and all of the dossiers and other information that this needs. It also tells us about the ships that we have the quick play information with. That's nice. So there's a lot of good information in this. And then we get to the ships. So we have this. This is the Dreadhold. And as you can see, it is 3D printed resin. So this is the only way to get a Dreadhold, and honestly, it's high enough quality in 3D. Like, I can see nice details, and I don't see any print lines or anything. There's a few little cleanup bits that I'm going to need to take care of, but that's nothing out of the ordinary. But, yep, now we have a Dreadhold. And then there are two core ship sprues for the UCM. So you have a cruiser and two frigates on each of these. This and that, and that. So this is 2/3 of a core box for the UCM. Interesting way to look at it, but it's 2/3 of that box. And then you get a single cruiser sprue for the Resistance and a single sprue of frigates, which builds 4. So 4 frigates here. And I believe the Resistance core is 3 of this sprue and 1 of this sprue. Not 100% certain about that, but so this is the 3rd part of 3. So this is the equivalent of a core box, but split between Resistance and UCM. And then there is the Resistance small ships sprue. And this gives you the Munifex and the Senecas and the ability to build up the Aldrin or any of the other options, the Belaires, the Newton or the Galileo. So you can build the different options on this. And so it is technically a small ship sprue and a core ship box and a Dreadhold, if you want to look at it as just the ships that are in here. So if you play UCM and Resistance, this is a good way to get several different small ships and a few other things like the Dreadhold. If you want to split it with someone else, it gives you a few options and a narrative gameplay that I should actually get around to playing. So as soon as I get these built up and find an opponent, I wouldn't mind running through this campaign. So I hope this was informative. I look forward to getting these all built out and getting a game in. For the Dreadhold, quick build for the UCM, the Penal Security Corps fleet. It says to build a Berlin and an Edmonton. I instead built the Warsaw and an Edmonton. For future usage, I'd rather have the Warsaw, but I can still run it with the Berlin rule set if I want to. It also calls for 2 Detroit and 2 Toulon, which I did build. And then the Dreadhold, which, being a solid piece of resin, is simple enough to clean up and get ready for priming. For the Eightfold Syndicate fleet, it says to build Lux Mortua. Instead of that, I decided to build Typhoon Vasquez, because having an admiral for future games is slightly better, and I can run that as Lux Mortua without any problems, and it'll work better in the long run. 2 Munifex and 2 Seneca are simple enough, being that they're single piece. The Belaires I built the way I usually do. Instead of building an Aldrin, I built a Collins. I already have an Aldrin built up, so this gives me an alternate build, and I can always use it in future games, just swapping out that piece. And then the Newton, I built as a Newton. I have a Galileo already built, so I might want another one in the future, but for this, I'd rather have the Newton be able to shoot the God Ray. And then for 2 strike carriers with scanning, that was simple enough to build. Always want more strike carriers. And then for the attack frigates, I went with the light vent cannon and missile turret like it calls for. So this is not, I mean, I made 2 changes on the resistance side with the Collins instead of an Aldrin and Typhoon Vasquez instead of Lux Mortua, but easily enough understood. And again, over here, going with the Warsaw and Edmonton instead of the Berlin and Edmonton. So overall, I think this is going to be a reasonable force for playing with the quick rules with minor changes, and also be a stronger overall addition to my armies once I'm not playing Dreadhold. Subscribe if you haven't, so that you don't miss any future videos. I also want to thank my patrons and supporters for making these videos possible. And until next time, I hope you find your bit of bliss.